ordered the kit, sent the money, and they ship you the raw body kit. It's an unpainted kit.
Like if you tell people a guy from Japan is flying in and he's going to, without measuring, hack up your car and throw on this body kit that he thought of in his brain, I think most people would hear that and be like,
you know, that's the real attraction with the RWB. You know, I live in Greenwich, Connecticut, man. There's Paganis on the road. You know, everyone has more money than you. You can pull up next to a Pagani and everyone will come looking at the RWB. There are loopholes here and there. But again, I think with social media, a lot of people are becoming more educated on these things or have access to knowledge that they might not even think to look for.
Welcome back to the J&B Body Works podcast or J&B Body Talks. Today's a really exciting episode for me because a lot of times when I sit across from somebody, they're always somebody very interesting, but it's not often that I get the opportunity to sit next to somebody that I consider my friend. Not only is he a friend of ours and a good customer of the shop, this guy, I'm going to go as far as calling him a prolific car collector because he has exquisite taste in cars and he's got an insane extensive knowledge of the market. So today we're going to sit down and talk to Lexi the dog. Now we're talking to Mike Rolla. So welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for having me.
I always feel so weird because, like, before the cameras start rolling, we're shooting the shit and talking, like, and then I have to get all serious, and I feel it either throws people off or they're not ready for it.
I hear you. And even now, we're just having this conversation. The dog's sitting here for 30 minutes.
Just chilling.
The minute we start rolling, she wants to get up and talk to us.
Awesome.
But
So you're a Westchester guy as well. You do business here in the Yonkers, Mount Vernon area. It's something we have in common. We both work for family businesses. But the way we met was through cars. And you recently, we did a really cool project together. Do you want to tell them about the Porsche that you just unveiled?
yes, I think probably the largest project that we've been doing. Well, I guess we'll go back a couple years. I mean, ever since before I could even drive, we've been bringing our cars to J&B. If there was ever an issue here, you know, you guys are the top shop here, and recommendations from every dealership kind of to go to these guys here for servicing.
We paid him to say
any
that.
repairs that happen on the cars. So yeah, little fender benders here and there on the parents' cars. We've been bringing you guys for years, and I think this is the first time that we've kind of done I'd say a larger project together where we, you know, painted a full car together and kind of got to do some customization on the design of that car and color as well. Basically got the opportunity to purchase an RAUH body kit, and I went through that process of buying the kit, and kind of with that process there's a little bit of unknown of when it's going to happen, and I think you guys were really nice to work with because of how flexible and quick kind of things got rolling with us there. So it went from having ample time to kind of paint the car to kind of like, hey man, we have 2 months, you know, how quickly can we get through this? I purchased a 1989 C4 in, I believe, Guards Red, and we kind of went through the process of changing the entire car to Etna Blue.
Yeah.
We got to meet Nakai and got to do a couple other things, but specifically, again, with your body shop, we did the painting of things.
Right.
We got the design. You guys recommended painting the seat backs, which I thought was a great idea. Painting the pedals, which to match, you know, some of the interior trim accents as well. I thought that was really nice. So it was fun doing a full project together.
There's so many people out there that are obsessed with these RWBs, I think for a lot of different reasons, but I don't think everybody knows the process of getting involved with something like that. There's a limited amount of them. And really, if you think, like, if somebody comes to the shop, they see your car, which it was here for a bit, and it was here once it was finished, that's the car that people gravitate towards because it's insane. The proportions are wild. The air-cooled Porsche phenomenon in America right now is bigger than it's ever been. So for us to be able to have the opportunity to have that here and get so many people's interactions with it was wild for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely love or hate on the RWB itself. I mean, there are a lot of enthusiasts that think you're kind of ruining the car to the extreme. I mean, there's a lot of tuners and stuff that kind of like, to your point, the proportions or how neat and tidy the kit kind of comes onto the car.
It's definitely race inspired, right?
For sure. So yeah, I mean, from what I understand, I don't want to speak for Nakai or the RWB group at all, but from what I understand, they basically started out as, you know, kind of like an underground race group in Japan, and he basically purchased a totaled or, you know, highly damaged
911.
Yeah, 911. I think he had a 964, maybe it was a 930. Yeah, he basically started into racing, and that's the whole idea of Rough World or RWB. That's the translation to Rough World in English. It's a German name, and I kind of asked him how he came up with RWB in the name, and it pulled back to he wanted something that was feeling Japan-y-ish, you know, with the car scene there, but also wanted something that was German because the Porsches obviously are German vehicles. So that's how he came up with Rough World, and then did the translation. I don't want to even begin to pronounce it
we're gonna
at
butcher
this
it.
point. But yeah, that's essentially where RWB came from.
Like if you tell people what's going on, you tell them a guy from Japan is flying in and he's going to, without measuring, hack up your car and throw on this body kit that he thought of in his brain. I think most people would hear that and be like, okay, like that's weird. But the like people went nuts for that car. Have you been out in the wild and seen people just go, like, do you get questions all the time about what the fuck that thing is?
Definitely out of all the cars I have, it probably attracts the most amount of attention. Kind of the first thing I ask without directly asking is almost, do you know what this is? You know, do you know? Because it's a car. If you know, you know. You know,
right.
That's kind of the idea. And I'll give a little bit of credit to myself because this was the goal in the beginning of the project. But I wanted to design a car that was a modified vehicle, highly modified vehicle, but might look stock or factory or neat to someone else, you know, maybe not a car guy. And I think that's kind of what the attraction is with this car as well. I think people see how wide it is, how the color might attract your eye or something like that. And I think they kind of gravitate over to the vehicle. And then once they start looking at the interior and, you know, seeing the houndstooth seats and a couple other, you know, interior modifications that we have in the car, you know, just think, oh, wow, it's a cool car. And then on the other hand, if you kind of know what it is, you really say, wow, that's a cool car and how it came out. So, yeah, I think there's 50% where I have to explain kind of the whole process. And even when I tell them, yeah, some guy comes from Japan, they kind of look at me like I have 10 eyes. Like, what do you mean some guy comes from Japan and cuts the car up? But, you know, that for me is a little bit of the attraction in the vehicle.
100%. So really my question is, we've all done the fake math in our heads, but like, all right, I'm going to buy an RWB. What's that process like? How do you even go about finding the person to talk to? Who do you reach out to? How did you start this endeavor?
I don't think there's a cut and dry answer because I think there's a couple of ways that these kits are able to be purchased. And basically, from what I understand, in the United States, let's say there's a couple of representatives that at the end of the day, let's call them manufacturer representatives to Nakai. And those are guys that kind of work on the inner circle and are getting to the point where they're, I don't want to say pick and choosing customers, but you know, just because of how limited number of cars that he can do every year, they're kind of, I'd say picking and choosing customers almost. Right. I don't know if I got lucky. I don't know if I contacted the right person. You know, I wish I had a cut and dry answer for you, but it's a little bit loose on that spectrum. And even after I was in touch with the rep, it was almost like, hey man, send me these funds for the kit. And I almost was like, who are you? Type of conversation.
What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit, you know, wire me, you know, a couple $1,000. I crossed my fingers and, you know, I got a kit and it showed up. And the communication, I would say, is a little bit on the poor side. And that's just because people are busy. And
also a time difference, right? If you're dealing with people from Japan, it's a huge time difference. And
it's a time difference. And I think that they don't have to sell these cars. There's enough people that are looking for them, especially, I don't want to say in this car industry, but almost, in this car industry, it's the fact that, you know, we're busy enough. I don't have to call you back right now, or we don't really need this business. So if you want to wait in line, you can wait in line. But if you want to scream and cry, you know, you're not going to have any answers here. So, basically ordered the kit, sent the money, and they ship you the raw body kit. It's an unpainted kit. We brought the kit here and we looked at it. I know we look at a lot of other manufacturers without naming them. A lot of other manufacturers that you guys might receive parts from, such as bumpers and fenders and things like that. And I don't know. I think, I mean, you guys can speak to yourself, but I think the comments were that this kit was actually in pretty decent shape where you didn't have to do much of.
Yeah, George, who's one of our top technicians, which we actually told the story to somebody who came by the other day. He started at the shop basically sweeping floors, and now 30 years later, I would argue that George has seen more of the world's most important cars than anybody else. I mean, I remember when I was not working here, I would walk into his area. He has a 3-bay garage that he works in solely, and there would be a Pagani next to an F40 next to a Bugatti. And he has said he's worked on everything, that those parts came unbelievably well built and well designed. I think that speaks to how well the car came out in the end. Like, that car looks clean as shit. And to hear that Nakai, who's just like celebrity now, and I don't even think I've ever heard a word come out of his mouth, which is kind of cool. He's like Banksy in that way. They obviously take a lot of care into what they're doing. They put out an amazing product. I think that's part of why the RWB has grown such a cult following, because of that. One of the reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I think also maybe a lot of end users wouldn't know if their kit wasn't in good shape, or if it was. I think you owning a body shop, you get to see that perspective, especially purchasing another brand's bumper and receiving it and saying, wow, this is a top manufacturer in the world. And the parts I receive, I have to touch, I have to, I mean, there's a little bit of work that needs to be done to them.
Always.
And I don't know if this is the Japanese culture or just Nakai, who he is himself. But from what I understand, he checks every kit. He packs every kit to ship to customers. And again, I don't know if that's culture or just his own pride in work. But yeah, definitely everything is looked for and all the details are there.
What was it like meeting him for the first time?
Definitely an experience. Didn't know what to expect. Didn't know if there'd be a major language barrier.
He speaks English?
He speaks pretty well English.
Get around.
I think there'll be a couple times that I was talking to him, and I mean, we're in New York, so we deal with a lot of languages and people here. So there are a lot of times where you might be speaking to someone and they'll kind of give you the yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I think again in New York, maybe they're not really understanding what I'm saying in English, or I'm not speaking their language properly, and they just give you the yeah. So I mean, there were a couple times with Nakai that I'd be in conversation, and I'd feel that I was getting the yeah, and then 10 minutes later in that same conversation, he would come back in with an answer that shows that he understood the entire conversation. Yeah, or he just didn't want to put his 2 cents in, or he just likes to be kind of a step back and listen to what's going on before he kind of inserts himself, maybe. Again, I don't know, and I got to spend 3 days with him, and he's a normal guy. You know, he likes food, he likes hanging out with people, he likes what he does a lot. I mean, I think that's it's hard to find these days. I mean, he really enjoys what he does. He really knows the cars well. I mean, he shows up to the shop, and within 10 minutes, I'm not joking, he puts his bag down and he's looking at the car, and he's got his tools out and he's cutting the car within a couple minutes. And I mean, it's amazing. The whole process was amazing. I mean,
that's so sick.
He's a true artist. I think one of the only few things that we measured was suspension, and pretty much everything was done by eye or with tape lines, or just with past knowledge of working on 964s. I would think under 1,000 RWB cars are in the world at this time. And for me, it wasn't about getting the car done at any time. It was the process of meeting him, the process of building the car, the process of having thoughts into building the car. You know, that was part of the whole experience and one of the appeals to me purchasing an RWB.
Who wants a Picasso done by Joe Schmo?
Yeah.
You know? One of the things that I often wonder with these cars, and we were just talking about the coin flip. You're either in love with it or you kind of hate them. Like you said, love-hate relationship. What do you think about where they lie value-wise? Do you think it adds value to a car? You think it diminishes? Do you think that the brand, because it's got so much hype, you think if it does have more value, do you think that's going to diminish over time? How do you feel about the value of those cars?
So I want to go back. We'll start at the love-hate thing real quick, because I know it comes up a lot, but I feel that, years ago, a lot of these air-cooled 911s weren't as popular as they are today.
Right.
And I don't want to say they were bargains, but you used to be able to pick up one of these cars for 20, 30, 40 grand, and it, in comparison to what was out there, it was pretty reasonable. So, I think years ago, it wasn't really intended to, let's say, cut up classics or cut up some of Porsche history or change Porsche history. I think it was, this is a lower cost, vehicle at this time, maybe not as appealing to everyone, that we can kind of start getting into. And of course, 10 years down the road, it's really transitioned, and those cars are now becoming collector vehicles. And if it's a rare color, everyone's really losing their shirt over, don't touch it, that kind of connection. So, back to the love-hate thing, I think that as these cars are becoming more of collector vehicles as OEM cars, I think it's emphasizing on the hate side of the vehicles, just because of the true collector guy or the OEM guy at heart,
Yeah, I think that's changing. And to your point, my dad, brother, and I went to Bear Jackson a few years back out in Arizona, and my dad came from a generation where it was numbers matching, original paint. That's what you go for. I don't think that's the case anymore. I mean, with certain cars it is. One of the things that we're going to talk about in your collection is those, when you get to those hyper rare, hyper coveted cars, yeah. But when you're talking about your, 964, yeah, people want original stuff when it comes to the more rare ones. But I think if you know that a reputable shop has changed the color and done good work on the car, people you see it on Bring a Trailer. People like that stuff. Like they you know, the most extreme version of that is like a Singer or Gunther Works. But even, you know, you see a replica 356 that's painted well and has good bodywork, and people will still pay 60, 70 grand for those cars. But I don't know where it's going to go, where the market's going to go, because I don't see this being so sustainable. How do you feel about the sustainability of the insanity?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking in the car market, I think it's becoming a time in our world where car manufacturers are manufacturing vehicles as transportation, where years ago I feel that there was a little bit of vehicle pride to it and
100%.
a little bit of love to the vehicles and engineering marvels. And I think it's at a time where that's transitioning. Someone like my mother, who's a little bit older, you know, now she drives an electric vehicle. A benefit for her, she never has to go to a gas station again, right? She drives to town, she comes home, she plugs it in, does whatever she wants. She probably drives less than 200 miles a day. And I think that's what a lot of manufacturers or even a lot of consumers are looking for now, kind of just transportation to work and home. And I think that the value of older vehicles that have engineering and thought and coolness factors to them, I think they will continue to appreciate, because no one is going to manufacture a vehicle like that in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, no one is making, you know, 90s Lamborghinis, these 80s. I mean, these cars are hand built, you know. No one is building a car by hand anymore.
Right.
So I think if you purchase a vehicle with some sort of history or story to it, I think it adds value to it. And I think, yeah, I think a 70s Charger will always be worth something. I mean, yeah, might it fluctuate in value? Sure, but I think there's always going to be an actual asset to that vehicle.
Yeah.
Just because, again, of what it is. I mean, again, it was a manufacturer and guys with love of engineering to make these vehicles and push the limit. Yeah, and I think things are changing. You know, every car goes 0 to 60 now in 3 seconds. I mean, we'll talk, I guess, a little bit more about kind of why I like the RWB, but that was kind of one of the appeals as well. I mean, there are plenty of cars if I want to go 0 to 60. I think now it's getting back to driver vehicles and feel of the vehicle, and I think that's what it's kind of lost in a Tesla or an electric vehicle, and I think that's becoming valuable in a car's value, generally speaking. So I think if you could find a car that has driving ability, history, or some sort of connection with the driver, there will be value always to those vehicles. And, you know, especially during COVID, I think hard assets really took a jump here, and people started realizing, wow, like this is somewhere safe that I could put my money, or this is something that I can enjoy for a little bit without having to pay $150,000 for a vehicle. You know, yeah, sure, the MSRP is $150,000, but maybe it only cost me $10,000 to own or $20,000 to own for the next couple of years. And I think people started realizing that, and that's also what shifted our car market. I would say it's untraditional car market. You know, we're not wholesalers. We don't deal in high volume. I mean, we're looking for something with passion, right?
Yeah. So as somebody, we can go back to some of the RWB stuff in a minute, but since we're talking about it, as somebody, I don't know if you would like self-proclaim this, but as a collector, I would consider you a collector. What do you look for in a car? Are you always considering the market, or is there something else that's driving you to be passionate about collecting cars?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I love playing the game of what can I drive for free, so to speak. I mean, I don't want to be a buyer or a seller, but sure, it's a hobby, and buying and selling 1 or 2 cars a year is fun.
Yeah.
It's fun listing a car. It's sometimes fun negotiating on purchasing a car. And the more you do it, especially as it's not a job, the more fun it is for me. You know, I can go look at a car and laugh with the guy and be way off on price and go home and not worry.
Yeah.
You know, I had a good time. We had a good conversation. Yeah, it's part of the hunt, so to speak, and it's part of that. So, yeah, I like, again, generally speaking, I like cars that hold value or you could drive at no charge. And I will also drive a car that I feel is fun. And obviously there's a cost to driving a vehicle. You know, nothing's kind of free, but generally speaking, when I say that, I mean, I'm looking for less than 20% depreciation.
I mean, we all, not all of us, but we need a car. We don't work walking distance to where we live. So if you can get one that's, since you need it, it's a necessity for you. It's not going to kill you. I think it makes the most sense, but it's not with everything. So let's say you're scouring through Bring a Trailer. What these days has been catching your eyes, or something that you're like, that's a value buy right now? Is there anything that's on your list?
I don't know. I think it's really tough right now, and I've been saying this for the past year. Kind of, I'm going to wait and see what happens with the market, see what happens with rates, and everything kind of seems steady. And I think right now it's a passion driven, more of an investment driven purchasing for me over the past couple years. Obviously, that's a second thought, and no one wants to lose money or waste money.
Right.
But I think for me at this point, it's a passion of what I want and what I want to drive and what I want in my garage. And kind of criterias on some of my list are reliability to some point. I don't want to. I have multiple cars. I don't want to have to deal with multiple problems.
Right.
If I have 10 cars, I don't want to have 10 issue cars, or maybe I could have one in the collection that's a little finicky here and there. And like a Countach. I mean, I don't know much about a Countach, but I would assume it's pretty tricky, and there's quirks to them, and a light might pop on, and then 10 minutes later it might pop away, or and some could argue that a Countach might be more reliable than a newer vehicle because there's not a lot of computer technology in that. I mean, it's driven by wire, right? I mean, don't quote me on that. I don't know.
yeah, that's it. No, I've had the opportunity with the shop to drive some really cool stuff, and not long distances, not far. So I can only speak to something from the shop to the garage back. Maybe clearing a TPMS sensor, I got to drive it on the highway for 5 minutes with customer permission. But I'll tell you, those old Lamborghinis are terrible to drive. Terrible to drive. I think Doug DeMuro was the guy who made this popular, this idea of the actual recommended way of backing up that car is with the door up and your head out the window. So, I mean, that's just ridiculous. Talking about drivability, you have two of the probably most, for me, the coolest daily drivers that actually make sense. You have a Raptor. I almost said TRX. The fanboys out there are going to kill me for that one. And then you have a RS6 wagon. So I think both of those cars are kind of within that vein of like, if you know, you know, right? So somebody might pull up to you next to the gas station and just think you're driving a regular F-150. And the same thing with the Audi, especially because it's a station wagon. How do you like both those cars?
Both categories fit into both my cars, though. So, the Raptor is one of the lowest depreciations out of any of the vehicles for multiple years proven. And I hate to say that it's kind of because it's like a weekend truck for some guys. It's not really a contractor vehicle, and I think that's a little bit of the appeal with it. I do use my truck all the time.
I've seen that bed full.
Yeah, it pulls. It pulls to its max. But yeah, they fit in the category of useful, low key for me, and I have to be able to transport. Obviously, my love here, my dog.
Yep.
She's an office dog. She comes to the office every day, and she has the whole trunk of the wagon. It's nice. She likes that. And then in the truck, now she heard us. And now in the truck, she likes sitting in the back seat. Kind of folds up, and then you got that whole flat area there. So, really useful cars for me. And yeah, it's unbelievable how I can have a $35,000 Porsche Macan, and next to it a $130,000 RS6, and 9 out of 10 times, if you drive the Porsche, I'm going to say, wow, I can't believe he drives a Porsche.
Yeah.
They kind of just give you that attitude of, oh, man, this guy is a Porsche.
Yeah.
So especially where we work in Mount Vernon and Yonkers, it's nice to have a little bit more low-key of a vehicle.
Right.
And, yeah, I think the RS6 is really, if you know car.
100%.
A lot of people just think, man, it's like a wagon. So, yeah, that was a big attraction to me, and it's unbelievable. No one's ever asked me anything about the wagon in Yonkers.
Really?
Yeah. And the minute you drive a $35,000 Macan, everyone looks at you like, oh, man, I can't believe you have a Porsche.
It's crazy. Like, you make a good point there. When people see a nice car, they don't think about the fact that you work a 12-hour day. They think about, oh, this fucking kid is driving a fancy, expensive car, and that it's annoying, but it's the reality of the stuff in the world we live in. And, I had an old guy come into the shop once, and he was upstairs. I hadn't seen what car he drove in, and I was talking to him very casually, offered him a cup of coffee. He was wearing a stained white T-shirt and some jeans and some shit kickers, as they call them. And after we shot the shit, I was like, how can I help you? He was like, oh, I'm here with my my Porsche GT3 RS, and I heard you guys were great and wanted to get some work done. And I was just blown away. And I was asking him about, like, casually, without making him embarrassed or like in a dickheadish way. I was like, you don't look like a GT3 RS guy. And he was like, listen, my dad owned the business before me, and he said, you start showing off too much, everyone's going to start asking for a raise. And I think that's like a really interesting way of thinking about things. And it kind of stuck with me. It's like when I played soccer, my coach wouldn't run laps with us. I was like, you're a douchebag. Why don't you run with us? But the guy who gets in, down in the trenches with you, and that's why I started painting recently. Because people, I think they respect that. They want to see you sweating. They want to see you working hard. That aside, I don't understand why wagons never caught on in America. You have any ideas of why people don't like them?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it was a styling thing. I don't know if it was the manufacturers didn't want to get homologated. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong for the United States. I mean, I don't know. It was a majority of things. But obviously now that they weren't sent here, there's become quite an attraction of the vehicles. And, I mean, now I think the M3 is supposed to come, or the M5 in a sedan.
Yep.
In a wagon format. So, yeah, I think these car manufacturers are linking on here. And, I mean, the performance and the reliability of the wagon are unbelievable.
It's insane.
I've had the car over 3 years now, and I haven't had one issue with the car. I mean, you get in and the electronics function. I had a Range Rover before, they didn't.
Yeah,
And,
Range Rovers. They're tough.
Your phone connects every time. And I know these things seem basic, but, you and I probably drive quite a bit, and getting in and out of your car, I mean, you've just become accustomed to these features at this time.
The creature comforts mean a lot.
So, and then the car is, I did a tune. It's got 700 horsepower
That's
for wheels.
insane.
I mean, to think that the car goes almost, 200 miles an hour with your family in it, is just, again, mind blowing. And really, again, transitioning in the world of years ago, you had to buy a Ferrari to go fast, and now any car goes fast.
Yeah.
So,
You think that's your fastest car, the wagon?
for sure.
For sure.
It's all-wheel drive. I think it's the fastest car. Top speed, maybe not. The car hooks up and flies. I mean, obviously, compared to an electric vehicle, it's not as fast. The car weighs, I think, 7,500 pounds. I mean, it's an extremely heavy car, actually. And it just takes off. The whole car lifts and just...
That's so sick.
Yeah, it's...
I'd rather that than a Tesla Plaid any day.
Yeah.
Any day of the week.
Yeah, it's a V8. I'm a big V8 guy. Normally an NA V8 guy. Shout out to the E90X group, E92s. That was kind of my generation of cars growing up, and that's what sounded muscly or strong to us. So
Sounds so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's attractive. It's a V8. It's a twin turbo, where I think a lot of cars are going 6 with bigger turbos or more turbo power these days. Yeah, it's really got low-end torque, great for the highway.
What's your favorite car that you have?
Definitely the RWB right now.
Really? Just
because of how much effort we've put in, how much energy we've put in. And I feel like I designed the car. I feel like I was a part of it. I mean, I cut the car. Yeah, I fiddle in my garage with things here and there, but I'm no car builder. And to kind of go through the process of taking, let's say, a blank canvas or a Guard's red canvas and making it whatever we wanted or whatever my vision was a really fun process. And to me, that's priceless. I don't think I could ever sell the car.
Yeah, I was going to be one of my questions for you is, would you ever part ways with it? But I think that's the car that you pass down.
Yeah, I mean, again, for me, collection-wise, the only reason to sell would be garage space, or if I was in a pinch and needed, some funds and things like that. And with that said, these are kind of my investments and kind of bank, so to speak. I have some hard assets. Some people buy paintings for their house. I just want a car for the garage. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, no, I think it's the modern version of that. We were talking today about this over 6,000 pound tax deduction, and you see I think it's 2020, early 2026 is when people can expect to get a new Range Rover full size. And I was talking to a salesman. He was like, I think one of the reasons is when that G-Wagon stuff went out about how over 6,000 pounds, I think it's like tax code 179, where you can get deduction on it. It's like people are looking at cars as an investment more now, I think, than ever. I will tell you that in your collection, no offense to any of the other cars, my favorite would have to be the CGT. That Porsche Carrera GT is just, it's got provenance, it's got style, and it's got stories galore. What's it like driving that car?
The CGT is obviously, in the car world, a pretty well-known vehicle.
It's a legend.
Yeah, I mean, it really lives up to that legend. It's a V10 NA. So, again, at heart, I'm an NA guy.
Matted to a stick shift.
Yeah, I mean, it's a gated, it's not gated. It's a manual car. It's a convertible.
That's crazy.
Let me go over that again.
Yeah.
It's a 2004, 2005 convertible. Not only is it a convertible, it's a hardtop convertible. Not only is it a hardtop, you can fit both pieces in the front of the vehicle.
So sick.
And now we fast forward to Koenigsegg in 19 or 20
Yep.
when they're breaking the internet because they can remove a hardtop and store it in the front of their car.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think people realize back in the day the engineering that went into designing that to be structurally just as sound with or without the roof on.
It's insane.
And then to be engineering the front to have enough space to fit both
Right.
pieces, to me, is just...
You'd have to think about aerodynamics, styling, and then they're like, well, we have to put the top somewhere. You know, like they don't think that the guy who owns the Carrera GT will have a garage space or an extra storage space for their roof. Of course they do, but that's not what it's about.
Yeah, but I think back in the day, manufacturers did believe that.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, think about all these other vehicles. I mean, F40, F50. Does the F50 fit in the front?
Probably not.
Probably not.
No.
I don't think it does.
I don't think it does.
So, I mean, I think there's a lot of cars you kind of have to commit to driving the vehicle all day without
Or
a
not.
roof.
Yep.
You know, and it's true. I mean, yeah, a lot of these cars we drive to and from a destination or to point A and back to point B. And you're not really going to be, let's say, stuck in the rain. But again, it's just another feature that I think is so missed about the CGT. I mean, it is a convertible. You want to compare it to all the other vehicles of its age and class. I don't believe any of them are going to be a convertible.
Yeah, it's insane to think how fast, how aggressive that car is. That's one thing that I've heard that I wanted to ask you about is there's not many cars on the road that feel that raw. When you drive that, you're not thinking about other things when you're driving that car, right? You're just thinking about driving that car.
For sure. So a lot of people think the clutch is difficult to drive, and I would agree. If you go from driving a standard vehicle and then hop in this car, the clutch is going to be way sportier, way heavier. But, you know, after you drive the car for a couple miles or a couple years or, you know, whatever the case may be, it's kind of second nature. I have no problem with the clutch. I haven't burnt through a clutch. We get it checked yearly at Rapazzi and everything checks out. But, yeah, a lot of the owners will rip through that clutch pretty fast. And that's, again, a little bit learning how to drive the vehicle. And to your point, thinking about where I'm going. I mean, there are definitely points where I may not stop fully on a hill, not because I can't start and keep going, but I do think that's the time that it's going to wear a little bit on the clutch. So just some thought. And the vehicle is also very long, and OEM does not come with a lift kit. Now, KW is offering suspension, and you can add a nose lift to the vehicle, and I think a lot of people are doing that.
Would you do that?
I think if I change the suspension, I would add it, but at this point, I've pretty much become accustomed to driving such a low vehicle, and that's actually transitioned to the RWB, because I think they're about the same lip height, so to speak, you know, when you're going off of a curb. And everyone, or majority of everyone who has an RWB is like, hey, you got to put bags in the front on the suspension. You need the lift. And, I mean, I've been driving it 6 months now and haven't scraped the bottom once. It's just all about kind of learning how to drive curves and stuff. And, again, progressing up to now where I've driven the Carrera GT for many, many years, you know, really has taught me that kind of distance that you need to take on an angle of a curb or a lip. And yeah, I think the drivability of the Carrera GT is just becoming accustomed to it. And after you're accustomed to it, it really, really takes off. The car is phenomenal.
I think screams
even in today's standards, it's fast. It's fast around a track. I mean, the other day earlier this year, we got to drive at Monticello.
No way.
In a hypercar group.
What was that like?
A couple other Carrera GTs, a couple 918s, Apollos. I mean, everything you can name was there. Koenigsegg. It was unbelievable. Obviously, I didn't push the car to 10, but we were driving it at 7, 8, 9, and the car performs at a standard of a new vehicle today. You know, I've had newer GT4s, and I'm a track guy. I like to drive everything I own on the track a couple times. I have dedicated track cars, but I do want to drive every car on the track just to get that rawness feel to it. But yeah, the Carrera GT is pretty much held up with, you know, my 2021 GT4.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously newer cars have better technology that help with traction control and putting the power down, you know, shifting it from the left side of the car to the right side of the car. If it's slipping, you know, that's where the Carrera GT really doesn't have that. And that's kind of where the raw feel comes into play on that.
Yeah, but you don't get that like emotional connection. Like I know a lot. We have a lot of customers, and this is no shade to our customers because I understand. You know, it'd be like we were talking about Picasso or whatever. It's like taking your $2 million car out and like to the cafe, right? Like I get putting your car in the garage, but I don't think a lot of people get to drive their Halo car, which is I think what I would call that car? Because I think you see a lot of technology from that car inching its way at this point, the 918 and other cars. But that experience must have been incredible, just to actually let that car do what it was made to do. Must have been was it scary?
I mean, I've been driving the car. I think I've owned the car, 7, 8 years now. And I mean, in that time, been accustomed to driving it. Obviously, I don't drive it all the time or every day. I mean, there is still some value aspect to it. But again, I have these cars because I want to enjoy them. It's not,
Hell yeah.
It's not my business. I don't need to buy and sell vehicles to make a living. This is just a hobby for me. And at the end of the day, I want to drive the car that I own.
What's the craziest car you've driven?
I don't know what crazy would mean. What's crazy
to you? Like, what's something that in your head sticks out? You're like, I got to drive this fucking car.
I drove a Baja pre-runner. I think that would be pretty cool.
Sick.
And for me, that's just because we don't have those here and we don't drive those every day. And getting in the car and making turns and feeling the travel and the suspension was something totally new to me. I mean, I'd go around a turn and the whole car would basically lift up because it's really meant to travel. So I'm like, oh, we're going to roll. And the guy who owns the car is like, oh, just stay in it and hit the gas. And the car just pulls
stay
around.
in it.
And I mean, we're in 3, 4, big jumpers here. I mean, crazy. I don't know. I mean, again, we're talking about fast cars. I mean, everything's fast these days. Yeah. I mean, again, I hate to say I drive a Carrera GT as a comparison, but yeah, for me, uniqueness is more of what I'm looking for today. And even in the car market, I think that's what I'm looking for is uniqueness, and I think during COVID, a little bit of government money was handed out. Everyone kind of figured out that they can maybe purchase one of these vehicles and not lose a ton of money.
Right.
They were figuring out how they could put money down or borrow or take a lease or get rates for these cars. And I would say your blue chip sports cars really started to take off. And it became a point where you would walk into Porsche, Ferrari, Range Rover, and they said, we can't sell you a car.
Yeah.
And that was really unattractive for me. And at the end of the day, there's always someone that is richer than you or stupider than you that wants to spend that extra money. And I'm just not looking to participate in that battle.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's transitioned me since 2020, let's say, into some more vehicles where I want to purchase something that is unique more than expensive. Because again, I think that the area that we live in here, being in New York, Greenwich, Connecticut, that type of area, I mean, we're used to kind of seeing a 488. I'd say not often, but it's not uncommon.
All time, really.
If someone has one and it's wow, man, this is a great Ferrari, beautiful. But I think that coolness factor has kind of died out a little bit on those vehicles just because of, again, I don't want to say how many are out there, but yeah, how many you're starting to see, again, with all these guys being able to get financing on a $120,000 vehicle, and now they're driving an R8 every day. I think that coolness factor of when you used to have an R8, wow, that's really cool. And I think that's died out a little bit. And I don't want to butt heads with anyone at these major brands. Again, there's always someone that's got more money than me or always someone that's stupider than me, wants to spend more money. If you guys don't want to sell me a vehicle, I don't want to buy one. Yeah. And that's kind of the attitude I'm at now. So the cars that I have are the cars that I'm purchasing or collecting or vehicles that I want to say that you cannot buy. That's the real attraction with the RWB. I live in Greenwich, Connecticut, man. There's Paganis on the road. Everyone has more money than you. You can pull up next to a Pagani and everyone will come looking at the RWB.
Yeah, that's sick.
It's kind of amazing. And then if you ever told the guy what you were in it for, his mouth would probably drop. The Pagani guy's mouth would drop. But yeah, I mean, it's a coolness factor. What is it factor to me where I can almost tell a story to it? And that's kind of where I'm going down the RWB path. And now I'm starting to build a 911 Safari kit.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's mainly driven towards our New York potholes. I can't wait to not worry about any of those. And,
it's terrible.
And hit everything, and it'll be a car that you could drive.
So tell us a little bit about that. What's the base of that car going to be? It's a 911.
Yes, I bought a 911 81, so I bought an SC. We're doing an elephant racing kit. I got Jimmy Rapazzi up at Rapazzi Sports doing all the mechanic work to it.
Legend.
And then you guys are going to do some of the painting when we paint match some of the lights up front and some of the push bars and things like that.
So what color are you going with?
So I'm going to stick with the OEM color on the car. which is like a slate gray.
Nice.
And then we'll paint match some of the parts because there's not a lot of, I'd say, off the shelf parts available to buy for this. We might end up making a few of the parts.
That's gonna be fun.
Bumpers, rear bumpers, and then powder coating them here in house. So another cool project to kind of do with us here. And again, really the appeal for me is the New York roads. I mean, I drive my truck maybe over half the year, and it's half driven towards just driving because of the roads here in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really wild. Any sort of sport tires here where we live, 287, Yonkers, Mount Vernon. Yeah. There's potholes after potholes, and I just don't want to be stuck on the side.
That's why I love my Tesla so much. I built this overlanding off-roading Tesla, and that thing, I drove it once into the city, and I became obsessed with it because it's lifted 2 inches. It's got these big knobby Nitto grapplers on it. The usability factor. I mean, the taxes we're paying in New York, I don't want to get political, but we should have better roads. I mean, it's a bit insane to think about. But yeah, to your point before, I think one of the things people often ask me this all the time, like we had Larry Casella on the other day, and he made a really funny analogy. It's like if you're the guy doing breast augmentation, you've seen 1,000 pair of boobs. You're probably like, I've seen one, I've seen them all. It's the same kind of thing with cars, right? But where we live, I think people don't understand the concentration of cars that we have here, of Paganis and Bugattis and Ferraris and Lamborghinis. They're out on a Saturday or a Sunday evening. Like there are people who wouldn't drive a car lightly in the rain, but you go to Greenwich Ave on a Sunday in the middle of summer, there is going to be a lineup of supercars, and it's insane. And I think I see more people, again, to your point, going towards these quirky vehicles. I'm more interested now in pulling up to Cars and Coffee in a RWB or in my Tesla than a Turbo S that anybody can have, because where we live, everybody has them. And I don't know if it's devaluing the car community in this area, because I still see young kids running around with cameras on Greenwich Ave or at Hayfields just wanting to snap pictures of a Ferrari because it's a Ferrari, and they play Forza or they play GTA or whatever it is. But to me, the idea of, nobody else has anything exactly like what you have, I think that's really special and really important. I think that's what's starting to make up a lot of your collection, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, even on your Tesla, you got the design, not only the wrap, but the look. Like, hey, we're going to put these bigger tires on it. I'm going to put a bull bar up front. Maybe I want a ski rack. Maybe I don't. Should we put skis in that? Should we put a Thule box? Right. What kind of look am I going for? And I think that kind of connects to who you are as a person. Mm-hmm. And again, I think, to your point, once you pull up to Cars and Coffee or even your local coffee shop to get a coffee, if you have a lifted 911 from the 80s, someone just says, man, that is cool. What is that? Yep. And they're not even a car guy. They just like the idea that you did something unique. Yeah. And you're right. I think the area that we live in, it's very saturated. And I think New York, I think Florida, mm-hmm. I think LA,
yep.
and maybe a little bit of Texas now and Atlanta are kind of the major hubs for cars. I don't know why I'm telling you. Of course, you guys are a body shop for high-end vehicles. I mean, the amount of Bentleys, Ferraris.
It's crazy.
I mean, everything you guys do is unimaginable to other body shops.
No, it's true.
We were talking earlier. I mean, you guys are one of the largest parts purchaser of a large manufacturer. I mean, mm-hmm. to think, again, a shop in Mount Vernon is doing something on that scale is unbelievable. And again, it's lucky that we're in this area to see all this, but at the same time, we almost see it too much where you're like, I've seen a red Ferrari before.
Right.
Where if we were in Indiana or Ohio, you might say, oh man, look, that's a red Ferrari, man.
Yeah.
So, I think, again, where we live geographically is kind of influencing what we're doing with vehicles today.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
we have this series that we do that you were a part of. It's called Respectfully, or basically the tagline is like, respectfully, what the hell is this thing, when we see cool cars. And we've noticed that the cars that absolutely go crazy on Instagram are the RWB, or we had a Lee or Keenworks Safari car on recently, and I had people who never, like, have known me my whole life, have never talked to me about a single car related thing ever, DM me and be like, what is that? And that's the cool stuff. And I think a lot more people are also importing cars. Have you seen that?
For sure. Yeah, I think now with, obviously in the U.S., over 25 years, you can import something, register it here, no problem. I mean, people were doing it a little bit before as well. There were loopholes here and there. Mm-hmm. But again, I think with social media, just like, Section 179 on the tax thing, I think with social media, You know, a lot of people are becoming more educated on these things or have access to knowledge that they might not even think to look for years ago. So now they realize there's a tax loophole. Maybe they start looking into that tax loophole. So I think, again, with social media, it's kind of transitioned people to having more knowledge, and it could be a positive, could be a negative, but, you know, at the end of the day, I think they're more knowledgeable with whatever they're doing because of the internet. So
yeah, sometimes my wife got upset at me for saying this the other day, but honestly, I don't understand why anybody goes to college anymore. We're gonna have another fight about this, but I don't like. There's probably somebody more educated with more experience on YouTube making better, more digestible, palatable content about coding than you would get at. I mean, maybe not at MIT, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just everybody's super educated about stuff, and that's what's cool. I had a guy come in today who found us through Instagram, loved our content, came in. I love it, but sometimes people come in and they know more stuff about a thing than I do, and I'm sitting there like, you know, trying to change the conversation, twiddling my thumb, like, yeah, I don't know about that specific brand of fastener that was made in the 1980s that goes on your car's fender. Like, but that's cool that you do, you know. And so there's a give and a take, and there's good and evil to that. But it's the car world. There's something about it. We've been trying to shy away. There's a little bit of toxicity, which is something I wanted to talk to you about. Your social media kind of blew up after you got the RWB. Do you see the love-hate relationship stuff come out? Do you get haters on your social media at all?
yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not a big social media guy. I honestly don't read comments. Yeah, I mean, I was sitting on a plane one day, so I, you know, had a couple hours to kill, and I hopped on CapCut and edited a couple of videos that I took of building the car and kind of put it on Instagram, and yeah, it kind of blew up, and I gained a lot of followers in a quick period of time. And again, maybe I could keep that flow going and keep coming out with videos, but I just can't physically do that. I'm not just someone that makes videos. So I think there are positives, and for me, one of the reasons of having social media is connection with people. You know, I don't have that so people know what I have. I actually would like the opposite. I'd rather not have anything, but you almost gain credibility. You know, I'm going to Florida or I'm going to LA, and now I have guys that say, hey man, if you're here, why don't we grab a drink, or why don't you come by, check this car out? And we're friends, and I have friends that I've never met, and they're just through social media, you know. So I think for me, the attraction of having social media is not to build followers. It's not to show off content or what I have. It's more of the relationships that you can gain, I think, from social media. And that could even be with brands and companies as well. You know, hey, look at my platform. This is how many people look at my platform. You know, can we work on something special? I know you make this normally. Could we customize this for me? Maybe, you know? So I think that's the attraction for me on social media. And I wish I had someone that could continue kind of let the ball rolling once we got that one video out, but I don't have time. You know, I can't follow those trends. I have a full-time job. I mean,
I recommend staying away from it, man. It eats up so much time. People you try to say, like, don't care what people think, do whatever feels good to you. With that social media stuff, it is not the same thing. You have to consider what the audience cares about, because one of the things that we've been talking to a ton of social media experts about is this idea of what makes something viral. And the way the algorithm on Instagram specifically is set up is it is not favoring anything other than, is your content good? Because if it is, it's going to go somewhere. I mean, we thought after a while that we could have put out, we weren't trying to, but I guess less interesting content, stuff that was more just like, how does my booth work? How do these fenders go on? Stuff like that. And immediately we saw a huge dip in our views because nobody gave a shit and it wasn't engaging. And then today we put up a video of a McLaren 765 LT getting absolutely smashed on the track, and it immediately started to blow up. So unless you're really dedicated to actively going through comments, checking your engagement, going through your insights, doing research, it is such a rabbit hole to go down, and it definitely takes a toll. I mean, I have people saying the most ridiculous shit to me on Instagram. Never met me, you know, talking about how I'm ugly or I have a terrible voice or my hair sucks, and you're sitting there going, you go to their page and, you know, you got to comment like, you know, thank you for your comment.
Dude,
but
you don't got to worry about that. Their hate builds your content,
100%.
builds your page. I mean, those guys, we made on one of the videos we did, we missaid something, and the amount of comments that we got because of the mistake that we made only helped your page and the views. So thank you, everyone. You know, bad comments, good comments.
Yeah.
You know what they say? No publicity is bad publicity.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's true kind of in social media. So it's great when these guys argue with each other. We had people arguing whether they liked it or not. 70 comments in one
It was
comment.
insane. And we had no
Going back
interaction
and
with it.
forth.
Just let it go. Just
So
let it go.
I mean, I think it's interesting how that stuff works. And yeah, I think it's a full-time job. I mean, it's a profession. And unless you're dedicated to that or have someone dedicated or have the time to dedicate it to it, I don't think you're going to become a viral sensation.
Yep.
You know, it's a job for people, and it has really become a job for, it has become companies at this point over the years of social media.
Yep.
You know, so
There's machines behind it.
yeah, that's wild too. That's a whole other aspect we want to get into. I mean, there's people with
crazy.
machines clicking on views, and
Yeah.
I don't even know the world. I won't even get involved, but absolutely wild. I mean, I used to hear about that on SoundCloud or iTunes, right?
Yep.
They would just have
Set up
20
rooms.
iPods. Yeah.
Just playing and playing and playing.
Yeah. So, you know, I would imagine that stuff takes place today, but
And if people did want to find you, where could they find you on Instagram and social media?
yeah. So my Instagram is MSR_CT. It's a public account. You can find me there. Again, I don't interact too much, but you can kind of see some of the cars I have.
We're gonna make some. I want to do some stuff with that Safari. I want to get some content. We'll get Elvis out there. We'll try to do some stuff with that.
Yeah, I think we're gonna
gonna
get the
be fun.
Tesla and the 911 together.
Yes, we're gonna try to rent a dirt track. So if anybody out there knows of a piece of land, piece of property, a dirt track that we can rip
We're running a
around.
farm. We're not going to a dirt track.
I want to do something
Someone's
crazy.
farm.
Yeah, that would be insane. So we need our 200 viewers to help us out. Reach out to friends and family and see if we can do it. And the last thing, we actually didn't prep you for this. We usually do. We are not the Grand Tourer or Top Gear. They have their own test track. We have a Nintendo Switch.
Okay.
So you'll be the third person.
Man, I wish you guys had a 64. That would be.
We were thinking about that, but the prices on these 64s are insane. You can't even. But thank you so much for being on the podcast, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, and we'll come back again and we can talk about some other.
Yeah, we gotta get JoJo on. If you're wondering why there's only one host today, in the comments, flood. Who is Joe Izzo? Because
where is Joe Izzo? You know,
doing nothing. Honestly,
I tell you, ask him.
Yeah.
We'll get him next time.
We will 100%. We're gonna
And
get
we'll
you
do
back.
this Friday night next time.
Yeah, we'll
maybe.
get buzzed. We'll get a few drinks. We'll go to Casey's after.
We'll
play
go to
Super Bowl.
Casey's after. Shout out
be great.
Casey's in Stanford.
Absolutely. We don't want to flood that place. It's perfect the way it is. Do not go to Casey's. But
They're closed.
yeah. So thank you for joining us in the J&B Body Works, J&B Body Talks podcast. I'm who is Mikey is. You can find us on pretty much any social media platform. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Even if you don't listen every week, it really helps us a lot. We're doing a lot of really cool projects coming up soon, and thanks a lot. We without you guys and the positive feedback that we've been getting over the past few weeks and months, I don't think that we would still be doing this. So a lot of love for you guys, and thanks for tuning in. Let's play some Mario Kart.
All right, first try lap.
All right, so we got Mike Rolla here. What is your dream 3-car garage, Mike?
Ooh, 3-car garage. Gotta have a pickup truck in there.
Okay.
I'd have to have a sports car and then maybe the wagon as well, an everyday user. So
You a night person or a morning person?
definitely a morning person.
If you could be any age for the rest of your life, which would you choose?
Sorry, I just went off the road here.
No, it's fine.
Fuck, the road went away.
That's the point. I'm trying to distract you a little bit
If I could be any age, what would I want to be?
for the rest of your life.
I don't know because I haven't got to other ages yet, but I feel if I could get to a freedom point, it'd be cool.
Yeah.
But not obviously, but now in hindsight, man, college was great. Everyone says that when they're out of it, but it was great. I want to go back.
1,000%. If you could choose one celebrity to be best friends with, who would you choose?
Dead or alive, definitely my guy Paul Walker.
Hell
Great
yeah.
GT guy. Yeah, I mean
He's a legend.
My guy, I like him. I'm a Too Fast, Too Furious guy. We're
Okay.
OGs. You
Hell
know what
yeah.
I'm saying, Mike?
I love it. What is your go-to breakfast order?
Bacon, egg, and cheese. We're from New York. Man.
Salt, pepper, ketchup?
Salt, pepper, no ketchup.
Oh, dude, I'm a ketchup guy.
I know, crazy.
I'm a ketchup guy all the way. What's something that you couldn't live without in your life?
Car.
That's an
dog,
easy one. Hiking or video games?
Hiking. I don't play video games. Yeah, I lose. See.
Yeah. All right. So his fastest time,
Where am I?
38:36. It's not bad.
Mario. Oof.
That's not bad, man.
Not bad.
2 minutes and 4 seconds. So we